we ate here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was telling her earlier, I remember Kush Kush, of course.
Yeah.
And I can remember white Kush Kush at Grandma Reaux and yellow Kush Kush over here. And I remember Crociol was like in a rectangle, like a donut with a slit in the middle with powdered sugar.
Yeah.
And I remember that here, but I remember more so at my mom Reaux, T-beignets. You drop it in the oil and it would fry.
And they would puff up. And
you pour steamed syrup on it.
Or powdered sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It was steamed syrup. Yeah. And of course, they're tarts, both tarts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I remember tarts at both houses.
They're pampadu.
Pampadu.
They're lost bread.
Chocolate bread. Mama
oh
would
my
make
gosh.
chocolate bread. Pour chocolate
Mama
over the
loved
bread.
Sweets. Oh, goodness.
And then I remember meatball stew. My mom Reaux's meatball stew.
I don't remember.
Fried meatball stew. I have Yvonne. She has the recipe. I have Yvonne make it sometimes. They would just flatten them out and fry them first, and then make the dark gravy.
Oh.
They were kind of more fried.
Yeah.
And they're small. That's why I don't like a lot of places you get meatball stew now. The meatballs are this big.
Or this big.
Instead of little tiny fried meatballs.
Yeah.
But,
well, you know, and I'm only talking about Daddy. Mama cooked all the time. Mm-hmm. Okay, she cooked all the time, and she knew how to cook. She was a good cook, but Daddy was a chef. Daddy and his fish courbillons and his garfish balls and his gumbos and his, he really, and if it didn't work out, he was going to pick it up and try again. He was a chef. He really was a chef. No recipes really.
No, I guess
just.
Yeah, garfish, yeah.
Oh, goodness. And his
Zula,
fish.
And his Zula's garfish balls, too.
Yeah.
Go to Hollow Beach and catch garfish and make garfish roast. And garfish meatballs.
Yeah.
Garfish balls.
And of course, I'm thinking about deer hunting in Simmsport. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for y'all for a while when Daddy bought that property in Simmsport.
Yeah.
Y'all all would go deer hunting and come back with venison.
Yeah.
That was something else. He provided for his family, I'll tell you. That there was no question about that.
And there's one thing that Daddy did. I didn't realize it till later. At the time, he did it, but he provided. He made sure we had everything we needed if every one of us wanted to farm. He didn't just he wasn't just content with just
smell that
the land he had, but he was one of the first farmers in Vermilion Parish to put up rice dryers. He put 3 water wells, one here at Vicki's, one behind Fabion's house, and the year before I quit farming, we drilled one on the Seymour property. So
many times
instead of having to pay the Hunter Canal for water, he made sure he put up 3 deep wells so we had our own water. He made sure we had rice dryers so that we didn't have to depend on the rice mills to give us the price they wanted.
Yes.
He owned a dealership, a tractor dealership, so that we could pay price for retail price or whatever. Better prices for our farm equipment because he owned and he purchased more land in Simmsport.
Yeah.
So it's like he looked ahead.
He always did, and he even said that too in our conversations.
Really,
I'm always looking ahead and planning. He knew exactly, almost to the penny, how much money he was going to make with each crop. Mm-hmm. He could go in a field and say, "I'm going to make 30 barrels in this field, and I'm going to make 40 in that," and he just would figure it out. Okay, this much a barrel, and he just knew it. It's called entrepreneurship, I think. He had his hands in everything.
He never talked, as far as I can remember. He let us to make our own decision if we wanted to farm. He always encouraged us to go to college.
Not
Blaine,
me.
He did.
Mm-mm.
Blaine, he must have talked Blaine into it because Blaine wasn't a school. Blaine didn't make great grades in school, but he went to college 2 years in Eunice, right?
Right.
And he encouraged me to go to college. And I did for 2 years, making good grades, But I just, it was unspoken. He never called me and said, "Why don't you quit college and come back and farm?" He never tried to talk me into farming. He encouraged me to go to college, but when 2 years in, I said, this is not what I want. And it just like the farm was calling me back. It was unspoken.
Yeah.
And when I told him I was quitting college, he said, well, no, why you want to quit college? I said, I want to farm.
Okay.
So he said, okay.
Now, he encouraged the boys to go to college, but he never encouraged me. But that was simply this understanding in that mentality about what a woman's role was in society. And the role was not going to college and not going to work for a long time. So when I said I'm going to college, he said, why are you going to college? You're going to get married and raise kids and well, I didn't listen to him.
That's good.
Yeah.
You went to college 12 years, right?
Yeah, 12 years probably. And much later, I had gotten my undergraduate, my master's, and my specialist degree, all here at UL. And much later, he told me, I am so glad you went to college. Because it's harder for a woman without a college degree, without a degree. It really is. Unless she knows exactly what she wants to do. So, anyway, no, Daddy did not encourage me to go to college.
Oh, okay.
No.
But you went anyway.
Oh, yes. I did.
But I learned, it's like, so what's the other topic? What's things you took from being raised on a farm that stayed with you the rest of your life, that you learned from the pal?
I think it's just hard work.
Yeah.
I think it's just that tenacity and not giving up.
Right.
That just continue. And if something doesn't work, either try it differently or rewind and start and go in another direction. There was never, ever, ever a thought of giving up for anything.
Right.
Never.
Right. That's what I learned from Daddy. He was content with farming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was, and content with staying in the same, being born there.
Yes.
Half a mile from his house, raised there his whole life, spend his whole life there, and die in his house. He was content with being right there.
He was, yeah.
And the commitment of not, because farming was a lot of loss. Farming, you would lose crops. You would, one time the tractor burned down in the shed. Wake up in the middle of the night, there's a fire in the shed, and the tractor he just bought was burning.
Yeah.
And I only saw Daddy cry twice.
Oh.
Once when that tractor was burning, and the second one when Blaine got killed.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's the only 2 times I saw him.
Oh.
It's true.
Huh?
But he would just, that's what I learned. Whatever you do, he did it with all of his heart. He wasn't just content with I'm just going to be a mediocre farmer. He looked ahead. He got rice dryers.
He absolutely did.
Dig water wells, bought more land, owned the dealership, just to make it easier for us. Even if none of us decided to farm, he made it easy. He made it possible for us to get into it because he had everything set up for it.
Yeah,
and just a simple life. It's like you said, back then, you had everything. You grew all your own food. Yeah. You hunted your own game. You butchered your own meat.
Yeah. You
went to the little grocery store down the road.
Yeah. And people will ask, like, why you do that? Why are you going up on the roof and cleaning your gutters? Okay, why not? And that's Daddy's I think that's what his attitude was. Why not try? Why not? Mm-hmm. Why not make things better? Why not? Just why not?
Yeah. Contentment and commitment.
Yeah.
No matter, nothing would discourage you. Nothing would ever encourage him to go do something else in life.
No, right. Now, all of these things that Daddy did, I want you to know, made Mama crazy. She worried, only because she worried. When he bought that land in Simsport, I think she cried for 3 weeks, nonstop.
Who?
Mama, Granny, because it's so much money, and what happens if we go broke? That kind of. Mama was the worrier.
Mm-hmm. That's why she had such stomach trouble.
She was the worrier. She was more negative Daddy just no, I'm doing it. Let's go.
Well, to me, up to that point, I seem to remember or think that he wouldn't buy anything unless he could pay cash for it. Until that time, he borrowed.
Yeah, but until he borrowed for Simsport.
Yeah.
And he paid it off in 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, he's always, when he had the money, then he'd go buy a new tractor. Or when he had the money, then he'd go buy this. But he didn't borrow very much.
No. And that wasn't her only worry. It was.
But that was that generation, too. Yeah. It wasn't just...
It was getting hurt on the farm. It was when those augers on the...
Right.
Oh, goodness. She worried about that nonstop. That somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody, So she took a whole different attitude.
Well, I would worry too. Daddy would do some chances like, we were crossing this bridge with some land in Captain, I think. And so we got up to the bridge with the combines, and I got down and looked at the bridge, and I said, Daddy, I'm not driving this combine over this bridge. He said, get on the combine. I'm not driving it. So he got on the combine, drove it over the bridge, and then I went and meet him. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going through a bridge.
Oh my God.
And then one time they were fixing the combine under the trees, and he was cutting with a cutting torch next to the gas where you pour the gas into the combine. I said, Daddy, the gas tank's right there. He said, don't worry about it. So I walked away and I went to the house and let him finish.
Right. He was trying to do. Remember when he burned all his eyebrows and his?
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Right.
Just so. Oh my God. An acetylene.
Wasn't he burning a pile of
trash? No, he burned a pile.
No. I'm talking about long before that.
Yeah, something about acetylene.
He was making a crawfish boil, and the big tanks of gas. What you use?
Well, the little tanks of propane.
Propane. Well, it exploded and burned his face. He had no eyebrows.
Oh my God.
He had no eyebrows. The doctor. Well, immediately they went to the they went to the emergency or something, and the doctor said, "What did you do?" And Daddy wouldn't tell him. Burned his eyebrows. They had to put that what is that medication? That silver kind of.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. Though I know what you're saying.
Something. Because he was all burnt, and I thought, what happens if his eyebrows don't grow back? He's gonna look so funny.
Mercury, right?
Mercury.
Poison mercury.
Oh yeah, poison
Every time
mercury.
you had a cut, you put mercurochrome. It sure cured real quick, but no telling what else it did to it.
Yeah, I know.
And then Grandma, we have mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, the flit gun.
Every time I go to an antique store this day, and there's a flit there.
Yeah, I think of Mama.
I start crying.
Yeah,
the flit. She coming at it was a. You know what a flit is? It's like this tank with poison. Well, this mosquito repellent. And she'd come out of the room, but once we were all in bed covered, she'd flip the whole room with this stuff.
So the mosquitoes wouldn't
kill
get
all
us.
the mosquitoes.
No, we wouldn't get mosquito bit, but we'll get cancer.
Right.
For sure. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, so farming was, as long as all I can remember is, as long as you were tall enough above a rice crop, you would go pull indigos. And that was part of our job, as young as you could. Go into the fields, pull weeds.
Now that's the part that I was glad I wasn't in the field.
Yeah, you was home helping Mom, and I was pulling weeds. But he'd hire a bunch of us, schoolboys and all, and you'd go through the whole hundreds of acres, just walking through the whole field, pulling indigo weeds out, laying them on top of the rice till they died, and then planting the crops. The airplanes, those biplanes, would just come over and plant seed, and you'd have the flag, and they'd come right over you and plant the crop. Mm-hmm. And then harvest was the best time. I always loved harvest time.
I used to love to just watch it.
Yeah.
Just go out in the field and watch that combine, and then transfer when it got full. Transfer that rice to the cart, and then bring it to the truck. It was like and
bring that to the rice mill until we brought our own dryers. But then
yeah.
Did you have certain jobs?
Well, I start out by you start out by working in the rice truck when I was too small to drive a tractor. When the rice cart would come and put the rice into the rice truck, I would shovel it and level it off in the truck.
Oh yeah.
Then I got old enough to drive a tractor, and that plowing the field, but also when the combines were there was always two combines. Daddy and Blaine, my older brother, would drive the combines, and I had the tractor with the little cart in the back. And when they were full of rice, I'd have to watch. If I'd fall asleep, they'd fuss at me because the combine was full or they were waiting on me. So I had to go and drive up next to the combine, and they'd pour the rice in my cart. And then I'd drive that to the truck and pour that into the truck. That was my next job. Then I finally got old enough to drive the combine myself.
And Kent was there too.
Yeah,
Kent was always.
Yeah, Kent would be once I got the combine and me and Blaine, then Kent would drive the cart.
Who's the oldest?
Blaine was the oldest,
Yeah.
and then Poppy, and then Kent, and then Ted. But I was between Blaine and Poppy.
And then Pat farmed with us.
Yeah.
When y'all moved back, Vicki married a Pollock from Connecticut.
From Connecticut, yeah.
And they lived on a dairy for a while.
Yeah. Oh, that was interesting. But anyway, you don't hear that.
And then y'all moved here, and he farmed with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were three of us.
Which I was totally okay with that, getting in farming. I really was.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't, until
Yeah, it was too much.
it was
too
just
expensive.
too expensive. I mean, we
And
just
then
couldn't
Kent
make it.
farmed later. I don't remember Kent actually in the business of farming until after I quit.
I don't remember.
He came in a little after. Well, he helped us
he
on the
did.
farm, but he actually didn't start farming as
did.
a farmer until after I quit. I
Yeah.
think. So Daddy always had somebody
Yeah.
in the family farming, one of his kids.
Yeah. Until he didn't.
Right, until he didn't.
Until all the boys stopped, and good reason, they just couldn't make it financially. And then that's when he would get other farmers, outside farmers, to come in and farm his crop.
But Blaine started farming first. I think of course he worked.
That's all he ever wanted to do.
Yeah, and then he had to work. He would work all rig jobs in the winter.
Yeah.
And he'd always want me. He'd go offshore, and he'd always want me to go with him. And I was too chicken to go. I was just a big scary cat. I'm not going offshore. Fly a helicopter offshore? I don't think so. But he had friends, Thibodeau's, Junior, them. They worked offshore, roughnecks, she called it. So Blaine would go with them, and I never went. But tragically, Blaine got killed.
Doing what he
Didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Working at a pipe yard.
Yeah. In the winter.
To
make
extra money.
Yeah.
And a pipe hit him in the head, accidentally. On the machine, part broke off and hit him in the head. So, and I came to realize, I guess you don't think about it at the time, but later I realized that my two best friends was my daddy and my older brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
I had friends in high school,
Yeah,
but nobody I really, I don't know. But to leave college to come back to the farm and farm with my father and my brother, it was like you went through hardships together. You planted together, you lost crops together, you had to.
And you did well together.
Yeah, sometimes you lost, and sometimes you lose crops, but you make a good crop, and you rejoice in that, and you'd fix stuff that were broken together, and Blaine was a strong person.
He was
Very. You can see in the picture. You saw in the picture.
Yeah.
And
he was thick.
Yeah, he was thick. He was as broad as he was tall.
Yeah.
And nobody picked on Blaine, and nobody picked on me
because
I was Blaine's little brother.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
You don't mess with.
That's funny.
And on the farm, I was a pretty skinny, brawny, and if there was something, because there was a lot of heavy work on the farm.
Yeah.
Lifting up heavy sacks of rice when you plant them, lifting up heavy bales of hay when we bale hay in the summer after the rice crop, lifting up big heavy parts of equipment to hook up to the tractors. And he was always so much stronger than me that he would pull 3/4 of the weight, and I would only have to pull 1/4. But,
yeah, good guy. He was a good guy.
Yeah. And he never drank.
No.
He never drank.
No.
I mean, as far as I can remember, he never drank.
I don't ever. No. And then tragically, of course, he didn't know. But losing his son, little Blaine was just another tragic happening in our family.
But that's part of of childhood that I'm glad we were raised on a farm.
Yeah.
We went different different areas from there, different walks of life, but being raised on that farm with that kind of environment was the greatest thing.
And always
In my
coming
childhood.
back for gatherings.
Yeah.
You know, we always, whether it's a reunion every other year, but you know, the family has stayed close.
Yeah. I know so many families, even after mom and dad died, inheritance.
Yeah.
We all pretty much got along.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know families, I won't name them, but just fighting tooth and nail after
Yeah.
the parents died.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that wasn't our problem
It wasn't.
because we were raised right.
Yeah. Well, they really set an example for us about how to deal with whatever came up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even Daddy deciding. I remember when Daddy smoked, but I remember when he quit.
I do too.
I think it's when his dad died of emphysema and made him make that decision. But
I don't remember, but I remember when he smoked, and he smoked his last cigarette, and that was it.
Yeah.
He never he had such willpower. He never quit before because he didn't want to. He didn't want to quit. But when he wanted to, that was it. It was done.
yeah,
It was done.
And back then, they didn't know that smoking was like bad for you.
They didn't have as much information that we do that we have now. Yeah. You're right.
so what else?
Did you go through everything on your?
I think so. Let's see. Of course, tragedies was our brother getting killed, but also Mama's brother, Pep. When
Yeah, Uncle Pat.
I remember I was at the house. I remember being at the house. Kind of like I remember where I was with 9/11. I remember the
Yeah.
exact customer's house I was in, and it came on TV. I remember the day that happened. I came in the house, and Mama was crying, and Daddy came in and told me what happened. Mom's brother and his son died in a hunting accident in a little camper.
Yeah.
A
A faulty leak in the
faulty
refrigerator.
leak in the gas refrigerator. And
Yeah, I think
They died of
I think
gas
Shane was
poisoning.
9 years old,
yeah, he was.
and Pep was in his 30s, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, young.
And I remember where we were when JFK got shot.
In Mississippi.
Was it Mississippi?
Yes.
Okay.
Green.
It was a vacation.
Greensville.
I remember. Huh?
Greensville, Mississippi. I remember. Daddy had gone talked to this something
remember.
about this guy. I'm not sure, but I remember too. We were in Mississippi.
Yeah. But let's see. Am I on? Okay.
What about you, Jesse? What are questions you have?
I'll get to it. I'll see. I mean, I just wanted to see what how the conversation would go, and I mean, I wanted to ask about this house and about the flood, which I did. We already
Yeah,
talked about
yeah.
that. Yeah, but did you have anything else?
No, I think that was it.
Well, we can break for lunch, and then if we think of anything
Okay,
else, we can.
yeah.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
I'm hungry.
Me too.